we are back with Evelin Laczi, who just read a really fun scene from The Rose of Granborough Park, which is coming out June 2024. Very exciting. And, you know, we set it up, it's a Victorian romance. And one of the things that stood out to me in the scene is that it's a working class heroine who is there kind of building her business with the aristocratic hero. So I wondered if you could start by telling us what drew you to the Victorian era and to the trope of working class versus aristocrat.
Well, it didn't come from. I didn't think like, oh man, I really want to write about the working class. It's like it didn't happen like that. It was more like it came from my family history, actually. And I spent a lot of time researching my family tree. And I had heard a lot of stories of my great grandmother and my great grandfather from my lovely grandma, who was just turned 92 this year. So
Oh,
she...
congratulations to her.
Thank you. She had a lot of stories to tell me. And also my mom, her grandmother is Joe, because basically in Hungarian, her name was Jolan, and it's like Jolanda in German. And I was thinking that I don't want to write about Hungarian history because I wanted to write in English. So it's like that would have been, maybe it's interesting, but I didn't want to do that just yet. So I was always drawn to English history and the Victorian era and the Regency era. So I was like, what if I just put a little twist in it? And my great grandmother and my great grandfather both came from Germany to Hungary, but what if they went to England instead? So that's where the inspiration came from, and hence this story became what it became. And it's actually nearly based on true events, because the father of my great grandmother was an upholsterer, and he was a very successful upholsterer here in Hungary. I mean, he had a very great business, and his son became an upholsterer, so it ran in the family, basically. And he really was called Joseph Metzger. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, that's real. And then I just thought that let's put this into the English setting, because I love that. I just Bridgerton fan and so on. So
Yeah.
and Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen, and everything. So this is what I grew up in. This is what I read most about. So this is what I was most familiar with. So this is why this was my first idea. But
yeah. And when it comes, so your great great grandfather was this upholsterer. Do you have family records or anything that you could use to inform yourself and research what was an upholsterer and what kind of fabrics did they have and what kind of projects did they do?
Yeah, I found like a newspaper article from the 30s or 20s or 30s. It's like very beginning of the 20th century, and it had like a really short introduction of him, and it was so fun because it just listed everything about this family, and it was just a short piece in the newspaper, but I was like, oh my god, this is my great grandfather.
Yeah.
It's so fun. So they made, besides the furnitures, I don't know what it's called in English. It's not the sheets that you put on the bed, but like
the mattress,
and what the blankets and the filling of the blankets.
oh, like okay, like quilts and
yeah, anything you had to feel into a fabric, that's the upholstery.
oh,
So,
interesting. That's interesting.
yeah,
Wow.
so it's like it makes sense now that they made couches and things like that you had to feel with like feathers and stuff like that. So that's what they did. And he even had, like, my grandma told me that in the cinema back in like the 40s, there was like a advertisement for my great grandfather's business that ran before
Wow.
the movies and between the movies. Like
That's
even
very
had a
cool.
jingle and everything. It's like I tried to
Yeah,
find it, but I couldn't find it, sadly. But yeah,
it's
that's
there somewhere. Yeah.
absolutely the inspiration. And I just thought that, what if his daughter wanted to go with the business, not his son? So this is how it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you wanted to write in English and set it in England. Can you talk about why, what I can't imagine writing in a language that's not my first language. So, what possessed you to do that?
Like English is so like incorporated into my life is so deeply because my sister lives in the US and she's been living there ever since like 2000. So it's like
Oh,
20
wow.
years now. She has a family there and everything. And so I visited a lot of times and I just, English books were all I read throughout my teenage years. So it was very much in my blood, even though at home I can't really speak it anyway. So I wrote a lot of fan fiction when I was younger. So that was also in English. So basically all I knew all the time was writing in English. And it feels weird when I try to write in Hungarian. Actually, it's like it feels like off somehow. It
Oh,
comes more naturally to me in literature. So
yeah.